Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are jumping into a massive story, one about liberation, about power, and we're going to see how a divine name got revealed not just with words, but through this just epic showdown that literally changed everything. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at a divine promise made to people who are enslaved. Then we'll see how that promise sparks this incredible test of power in Egypt and, what that tells us about the nature of God. After that, we'll get into the rules of engagement that come out of this whole thing. And finally, we'll uncover what the text says is the ultimate global point of it all. All right, let's get right into it. So picture this. The story opens with a whole group of people stuck in what the text calls cruel bondage. But there's this old promise, a promise made generations ago, that's just about to be fulfilled in a huge dramatic way. And this is a statement that kicks everything off. It's spoken to a leader, Moses, who is frankly full of self-doubt. It's not just a statement, it's a declaration of absolute authority. It's basically saying, this is who I am, and the rest of the story is all about proving it through action. Okay, so this is really interesting. The text goes out of its way to make a big distinction here. This name, Jehovah, or the Lord, it's not just another title. It's presented as something new, a much more personal revelation of God's character. And get this, it's a name that even the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, hadn't known. So with this new name comes a really clear three-part mission. First, get the Israelites out from under their burdens. Second, redeem them from slavery with some great judgments. And third, give them the land of Canaan. And this whole thing, it's all tied back to a covenant, a super serious promise that God now says, okay, I remember this. It's time to act. But here's the thing. This promise isn't just words on a page. It's about to be demonstrated in a huge way. The story now pivots to this epic showdown, a confrontation with the most powerful man in the known world at the time, Pharaoh. And wow, the very first encounter really sets the stage. It's immediately a contest of supernatural power. Pharaoh's own magicians, they can actually replicate the sign at first. But then, the serpent from God's side straight up swallows theirs. I mean, the power dynamic is set right then and there. But the text says Pharaoh's heart hardened, which pretty much guarantees this is just the beginning. So what comes next is this series of escalating disasters, the famous plagues. And each one seems to target something really specific about Egyptian life. Their river, their homes, even their own bodies. And you see a real turning point with the plague of lice. That's when Pharaoh's own guys have to admit defeat. They can't copy it, and they just say, this is the finger of God. And with all this pressure mounting, Pharaoh finally cracks. He actually acknowledges the Lord's power and tries to bargain. You can almost hear the desperation in his voice, right? He's trying to cut a deal. But, and this is the crucial pattern you see over and over, the second he gets a break, the moment there's what the text calls respite, he goes back on his word. He breaks the promise. And the source material really hammers this point home. This cycle of caving and then becoming defiant again, it's exactly what was predicted would happen. So you might be asking, what is the point of all this chaos and destruction? Well, according to the text itself, these signs and wonders, as they're called, aren't random at all. They're meant to paint a very clear picture of God's character and power. And this is where a really key attribute comes into focus: precision. From the fourth plague onward, the text draws this sharp line in the sand. You've got Egypt suffering, but the land of Goshen, where the Israelites are, totally spared. So this isn't just random chaos. It's a very targeted demonstration of the power to sever, to make a distinction, and protect one group while judging another. So if you put all these pieces together, you start to see this really complex picture of God emerging from the story. This is a God who, 1, keeps promises from way back, 2, rescues the oppressed, 3, has total command over the natural world, and 4, is completely in control of how things play out. And all of it, every single plague, is driving towards one ultimate point, that this God is totally unique. There's nothing and no one like him. And the text doesn't make you guess. It's not subtle. The purpose is stated right to Pharaoh's face. This whole thing is a lesson, and the lesson is that there is no power on this earth that can even come close. Okay, so this incredible story of power and rescue, it's not just about what happened back then. It also lays out some really clear principles, almost like rules of engagement, for the relationship between God and people.
And the text is pretty direct about what the right human response is supposed to be. First, you have to acknowledge his supreme authority. In fact, the whole reason given for leaving Egypt is so that they may serve me. And yeah, after seeing all that power, the expected response is fear, which in this context really means a deep, profound reverence. And finally, you've got to listen to the messengers.
But it's not just about the human-to-God relationship. The story makes a massive statement about how we should treat each other. Think about it. The entire divine intervention gets kicked off by the groaning of the children of Israel. This isn't just presented as a social problem, it's framed as a cosmic injustice, something so wrong it demands a divine response.
And the implications just keep getting bigger, even stretching to our relationship with the planet itself. When Moses tells Pharaoh that the earth is the Lord's, it just reframes everything, right? The plagues show control over nature because, from this perspective, the whole planet belongs to God. We're just living here. We're stewards, not owners. Okay, let's pull all these threads together now and look at the ultimate goal. I mean, why this guy? Why this epic confrontation with Pharaoh? Well, the text actually gives us a surprisingly direct answer.
And this is where the story kind of flips the script on us. It turns out Pharaoh's stubbornness, it wasn't a bug, it was a feature. It wasn't an obstacle to the plan, it was the plan. His resistance is what created the stage needed to show off the full scope of God's power, to let those signs and wonders get multiplied. And there it is. That's the ultimate purpose, spelled out right in the text. Pharaoh, the most powerful man on the planet, was essentially put in that position for this one moment. The endgame wasn't just about freeing one nation. It was about using the biggest stage in the world to make a name for God, to declare that name and that power throughout all the earth. So this ancient story of judgment and liberation, it leaves us with this huge question that honestly still hangs in the air today. When you're confronted with an overwhelming display of power, on that kind of scale, what's the intended response? What is anyone, a person, a nation, supposed to do?